Okay, we'll begin. I would like to call to order the November 16th, 2021 Wenham Select Board meeting. It is 6:32 p.m. This is a virtual meeting which is being recorded. I am joined in attendance by the balance of the Select Board, Diane Bucco, Gary Cheeseman, as well as our Town Administrator, Ryan Ferrara, and our Recording Secretary, Catherine Tinsley. And we will take all of our votes that are necessary to take by roll call vote, but by the virtue of the fact that this is a virtual meeting. So that out of the way, we'll move on to the our always first agenda item, which is public input. We always welcome input from folks who are watching on any item that is not on the agenda. And as always, as usual, there aren't too many people, but if there is someone who would like to be recognized, if you'd please put your name in the chat. We'll wait a minute or two for that, and absent any names, we'll move on. Ryan, anybody?
Don't see anybody on my end.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I think by now, probably if they were going to, they'd be there. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which are the announcements. And Ryan, if you would take us through those, and I think you can slide right into your report after that.
Okay. All right, Catherine, thank you.
Thank you.
So just a reminder to the public that we have a few board and committee openings, including the Council on Aging, Hamilton Wenham Community Access and Media, Iron Rail Commission, Wenham Human Rights Committee, WISH, and the WISH Committee. So anyone who's interested in that can please reach out to my office or via the admin@wenhamma.gov email address to reach out with any interest that you might have. A reminder to residents that the first round of bag leaf collections taking place on Saturday, November 20th. Please remember to have your leaves out on the curb by 7 a.m. on collection days. So that's an important thing. You wouldn't want to miss that. But if you do, the second collection is taking place on Saturday, December 11th. So please plan accordingly, and if you could get your bags out early to the curb, that would be in everybody's best interest. So thank you for that. Wanted to remind folks that on 8:30 on November 20th, we have scheduled our Saturday operating budget meeting, and we have a second Saturday capital budget meeting that is scheduled for 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, September 18th. We'll probably talk some more about that when we get into the meeting calendar later in the meeting as well. Reminder that the general election is taking place on September 30th, and that voting will take place in Town Hall during the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. I wanted to let everybody know Trudy had reached out to me earlier today with something she wanted to make the public aware of, and I'm just going to read this from her update. But for the September 30th special election, if you will be out of town on election day and want to vote by absentee ballot, you need to have your completed application into the town clerk's office no later than Tuesday, November 23rd at 5 p.m. The town hall will be closed for the Thanksgiving Day holiday and the day after Thanksgiving. That is a town holiday here in Wenham. To ensure the mail will get to you, ballots will be mailed no later than Wednesday, November 24th. If you do not get your application to the town clerk's office by the 23rd, you still have the option of voting absentee at the town clerk's counter up until noontime on Monday, November 29th. So some new information there for you. Again, special elections taking place on November 30th. This is to fill Brad Hill's old slot. And again, voting is taking place during the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Here in Town Hall. So any updates, folks? Just as a reminder, we're still doing vaccine appointments on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 6:30 at the Senior Center. And if anyone wants any updates on COVID and where things stand, you can please go check our website out on that front. regarding reports, I wanted to share with the board, I sent a note out earlier to you today that the town has received a $75,000 grant to put against our $125,000, at least estimated cost for our master plan. It's exciting news. We've been invited to come to a grant ceremony that's taking place this upcoming Thursday. So just wanted to see, I know Catherine had reached out to me already about this, but to make the other board members aware of this, as Margaret pointed out, we do not have to go down to Fall River to get the big check to bring back to us. They'll actually pay us via direct deposit. So no need to have to go down to Fall River. My wife's from that area. It's actually very, very nice. But certainly not a requirement. But if any of the board members do intend to go down, I'd be happy to pass that word along to our representatives from the state. So as I shared with the board, I think the thinking would be for us from a budgetary standpoint would be to basically reallocate those funds on the floor of town meeting to another use that we may have. So that's, being able to cobble that money together for last year's town meeting was a lot of work on the town's part. So then having that a good portion of that money available for us to do other things with it will be much welcome. So great news. Congratulations to Margaret and the town, our town planning coordinator for putting in that application and for us to receive it. So it's great news. And again, if any of the other board members are interested in going down this upcoming Thursday, I'm going to have to politely decline on my end, but if anybody's interested, please let me know. So that's really the big news here on our front. And again, it's it's a great thing to receive. So we didn't get the entire 125, but we certainly got a large portion of it. And again, that could be reallocated for some other much needed capital items this upcoming April at our next annual town meeting. So that's really the key thing I wanted to hit on. So and I'll turn it back over to Catherine.
Okay, thank you for that report, Ryan. And it is very good news on the grant. And special thanks to Margaret. I'm pretty sure she was pretty involved in putting the grant application together. So that's a pretty good sized chunk of this expense. I have no particular report tonight relative to the chair's report. So if there's anything that Gary or Diane would like to report. Yeah, Gary.
Yeah, I just want to add my kudos on to Margaret Hoffman. I mean, 75,000 is a huge amount of money against what we had planned to spend on this project. So big thanks to her, and I hope she gets the recognition well deserved. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Diane. Oh, muted.
Thank you. It told me that. I want to thank Margaret as well, say the same thing as Gary. But I just had two questions that I just wanted to bring up that maybe we can discuss at a future date. And one was doing, and not because I want to, but doing in-person meetings or hybrid meetings, a timeline for that. I am getting asked about that. And also, and I didn't read the most recent email that we got from a resident about cell phone service in town. So I didn't know if those were a couple things we want to try to discuss at some point.
Okay.
I could maybe start at least in terms of the cell phone. That's something that I'm having both chiefs discuss this with the individual who made that inquiry, Diane. Sort of an awkward thing, and not awkward, but it isn't necessarily it's where we can kind of point people to various pieces of information, but the town really doesn't have a direct role in terms of cell phone coverage. As you know, we are moving forward. We just to give a quick update on where we are with the cell tower. We're beginning negotiations with the successful bidder on that, and there's still some details for us to work through in that regard. This week is pretty much dedicated to getting ready for our budget meeting this upcoming weekend. But in terms of what material things that we as a community can do to improve cell service, we are taking that step with the cell tower, but and we think that'll be a benefit both to the Wenham and Hamilton. But in terms of what we do specifically to support that, I think it's just important to kind of be clear about what our limitations are in that, in terms of what role we have. So at this point, we're just trying to maybe share that information and get that word out to them. But really, it's really becomes a responsibility of the cell phone carriers themselves to be able to get that signal across. And I mean, certainly anyone who's driven through Wenham and Hamilton and try to get a cell phone service is experience the frustration of that. And while we are going to be installing hopefully a new cell phone tower, it's also not going to be a panacea for the issues that people are facing in these communities as well. So
right. So I just wanted to make note that it's not just Hamilton and Wenham. I lose cell phone service through Ipswich. Manchester by the Sea has the same situation. I just thought that the email brought up some interesting ways to look at it, but perhaps that's not a select board issue per se. But just curious, why the chiefs? Why would they have to respond?
Well,
to
they're already heavily involved with a lot of communications in town, so they have their own communications. So they have a better sense of these things and probably better ties too when the chief of police picks up the phone to speak to somebody from Verizon or what have you. That does carry some weight.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what. But and then in terms of in-person meetings, I think that we're probably looking some time frame, probably at the beginning of the calendar year. I think as restrictions are easing up. Catherine, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that you were speaking with the Board of Health a little bit about this, and I don't know if they had provided any feedback to you regarding their thinking, but big picture, I think we're looking at the beginning of the calendar year.
Yeah, I haven't actually been able to connect, but I do have a couple of questions for the Board of Health. And as always with the meetings, we would take sort of direction from the Board of Health or recommendation. But what Ryan says seems right from what I've heard and what I've read. We check in with the Board of Health periodically, and it seems like right after the holidays or just before the holidays, we'll check in again and see if they think it's okay to have in-person meetings. We do still it will be hybrid, I guess, and it's partly dependent on our staff. So a few things have to come together. But I've been getting the same question, and so we have to just work with our resources, and also I'll continue to follow up with the Board of Health.
Yeah. One thing to add to that too, Diane and Catherine, just as I was speaking today with Jackie, who they're having a special town meeting this evening in their elementary school gymnasium. So clearly, at least in the area, these efforts of opening up and having large scale meetings in person are all happening, and that's certainly the trend that we're seeing. And touch wood, we'll continue on in that pathway, and no other Delta variants or anything such that we can continue on this positive path that we're on.
It does make me think too, though, Diane, to your point, we haven't had an update from the Board of Health in a while relative to their view of present case counts and trajectory, and just as we used to when Gary was sole proprietor, I think they called him, and there were a lot, maybe not as many cases as we even have now, but we had regular updates, and it's not as if it's not an issue any longer. So it might be helpful to everybody if every once in a while we had an update from someone from the Board of Health.
Would the board like me to put that on? See if we can get them in for our December 1st meeting.
What do you think, board? I'd be interested. I don't know if that's the right date.
If there's someone readily available, sure. That's 5 minutes. People are understand the situation is going into the holidays, especially.
Right.
So, but the second part of the hybrid would be the training in town hall and the staff and all that kind of stuff, which I think, even if we're thinking the new year, we probably need to get on that, because I don't think it's going to be easy.
Right. And
Right.
I don't think all of the staff that we need is actually been hired yet. So that's why it's a little slippery, but we understand that, some folks would really like to get back to that, and we
Good.
have to keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sure. So we do have a consent agenda this meeting. It is, as usual, minutes, and so we'll turn it over to our consent agenda
I'm
motion
sorry.
person.
Where is she? I move to approve the open session minutes from October 22nd, 2021.
Second.
Is there any, I guess we're not going to really take comments since it's a consent agenda, but if anyone had something vital, I would entertain it. If not, we'll take a vote. Gary,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Thank you, Catherine Tinsley. That was probably a hard meeting to take minutes for. So under new business, the first thing we have is to vote the special election state election warrant. Ryan, do you want to introduce that?
Sure.
Tell us what we're
This is
looking at.
essentially, I'll pass this along. So basically, this is just the formal notice that the board is being asked to sign by the town clerk. So we did a similar thing for this, for the preliminary that we had back at the beginning of the month. So just basically just a posting.
And we would have to come in to the town hall to sign this one.
Not necessarily. I think we can probably do the sign now again on this too, if the board is, if that's working for everybody. I don't believe it requires a wet signature, if you will.
Okay. Okay, well, I think we probably can do either. Just let us know if there's a preference.
Sure.
Okay, the next item, I'll take a little bit.
I think we also need to
Need a
vote that.
motion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry. Yes, right. Sorry.
So, move to approve the November 30th, 2021 special state election warrant.
Most definitely.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? If not, for a vote, Diane,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Sorry, I have a time in my head that I've written down by which I think this meeting will end, and I have a bet with myself. So sorry, I don't mean to rush us. Sorry, me especially rush a meeting, never. So meeting dates. Let me see if I can get through this, Ryan, and because this is important for me, but challenging. So as we saw, our next meeting, the select board's next meeting, is this Saturday, November 20th. It's on the calendar, and it's our budget kickoff meeting. So that's this Saturday at 8:30, starting at 8:30 in the morning, November 20th. Our next regularly scheduled select board meeting, did I say school committee? Select board meeting is Wednesday, December 1st. And if folks remember, would normally be Tuesday, but that's election day. And so we postponed that meeting or changed that meeting. Regular select board meeting is Wednesday, December 1st. On this particular calendar, we have on December 8th, I think it's tentative at the moment, but we have set aside a date for a tri-board meeting relative to the schools. Tri-board, it's not really tri-board, it's more like, well, it's the schools, Hamilton and Wenham, select boards, finance committee, select administrator, manager. It's like 30 people. It is an annual, we typically have an early meeting annually. So I don't know that everyone in each entity has said that this date works for them, but I thought it is on the calendar tentatively, and I just wanted to check with Gary and Diane to see if that meeting happens as a tri-board meeting, probably 7 p.m.-ish. Would you be able to attend?
Good here.
Gary, Diane?
Yes, I think so. Mhm.
Okay, so as that comes up, Ryan, if you can I'm available as well. So
Okay.
I think it's important for everyone to be, every group to certainly be represented and we'll have to check, Ryan will check with the FinCom as well.
I
So
believe that's an in-person meeting though, right? They like to.
It
do-
is an in-person
Okay.
meeting
Thank you.
at the Bucher School. I think it must be at the Bucher School.
Yeah, you could have cafeteria, right?
Yeah. The schools have have an advantage in having some rather large spaces to meet. In general, I don't think we could hold a meeting of 30 people in Wenham in our town hall, COVID or not. But anyway, it is at Bucher. The next meeting that's on this count, so the other scheduled regularly, scheduled select board meeting on this calendar shows up on December 14th. At the moment, so we've talked about a couple of things in December, 2 meetings, 1 meeting, which date. So it looks like it's settling on the 14th. It's an important meeting because we have to do our license renewals in December. And we also have a review of the tax classification that we will have voted on the 1st, and also maybe a discussion of the tax rate. So I put a little question mark there because we have to just be sure that we have everything ready, but it looks like our meetings in December will be the 1st regular meeting, the 8th, which is the tri-board meeting, and the 14th, which will be a regularly or a normal scheduled meeting. Again, off cycle, but that's what it's looking like.
Sounds good.
Okay. The other date, which just today I realized, but thought might be a conflict, but I guess isn't. So on December 18th, we have the sort of sister meeting to our operating budget meeting. It's a Saturday, and on this calendar, it shows a Saturday capital budget meeting. I know that's the same day as Wreaths Across America, but it seems from asking around that those 2 meetings will not conflict in time. Wreaths Across America begins at noon, I think. And Ryan, you're planning this meeting for the morning, it seems like.
Correct, yeah. So, and I maybe ask Gary on that. I just kind of looked at older Wreaths Across America events that had been done at noon before, but I don't know if the veterans have been discussing.
Yeah, this is Bill. That's
Yeah,
correct.
Bill
Hey, Bill.
Oh, Bill's there.
Hey.
Oh, hi, Bill.
Hi, everybody.
So noon. Okay.
Yeah, so at noon time
Okay, all right.
on the 18th.
So if our meeting is, starting at 8:30, going for a few hours, we'll be done in plenty of time to get to the cemetery for Wreaths Across America at noon.
Correct.
So
Okay.
if that's okay with people, we'll just leave that capital budget meeting on
That's
the
good.
18th, and it'll be a busy morning. Okay. Did I think I hit all the December meetings. I'm not quite, I don't think we're quite ready to talk about January or not, but aspirationally, it would be nice to get back on our regular 1st and 3rd Tuesdays, and we should be able to nail that down in the next meeting or 2. Am I forgetting anything in December, Ryan?
I think that covers everything in December, and I think that the idea, Catherine, for January is we start our first select board meeting would be on the 4th, I believe, is what we had.
Right, that would be the first Tuesday.
The first Tuesday, and then get us back to that cycle for
Right.
January.
So it would be the 4th and the 18th.
Let's make sure. Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So that's the plan.
Yeah.
Well, how things are. We start to come into some deadlines and then some slow times. So we'll just keep everybody updated on that. Anything else about the calendar meetings? Okay, then the next thing on the agenda is a review of the town administrator's performance review evaluation document. Would you like me to speak to that, Ryan, or would you like to
Sure,
speak to it?
go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so as per Ryan's contract, and actually all of our TA's contract, we have to perform, in this case, two performance reviews of our TA this year, because he was recently hired. This is his first year, as is our custom. We have a performance review at 6 months, which is in the January timeframe. And then again, at the end of the nearer to the end of the fiscal year. So the general, the two things I'd like to do tonight, just in general, is so we sent out, your packets should have the evaluation form. This is the form that we've used, I think, since I've been a select board member, but that doesn't mean that it has to be this document. We do have a general agreement that it's something that we would agree to, as well as the person who's being evaluated, so Ryan in this case. And it's a little different from a sort of annual review, in that our annual review, or Ryan's annual review, would typically include a review or an assessment of how well he has met goals, but that's not really a part or the purpose of this 6-month review. So I'm hoping everyone's had a chance to take a look at it, and if you have any, sort of preliminary thoughts about it, I'm interested to hear them. Gary, have any thoughts?
No, I think it's quite sufficient. I think the important thing here is let's set the timeline here as to what dates we're going to suspense ourselves to get this done.
Yep. Yeah, we'll got some thoughts on that. But Diane, any
No, I
comments or
like the evaluation. It looks nice. It's straight to the point and easy to complete, I think.
Yeah. So from a process point of view, this is the way it's been done in the past. 99% of the way it's been done in the past. Each select board member receives a blank one of these, which they put their names on and fill out. We each fill out separately by circling the number and adding any comments that we wish to. And after that, we each have an opportunity to discuss our particular evaluation of Ryan with Ryan in a one-to-one individual meeting, so that he's not, sort of surprised by anything. Hopefully that wouldn't happen. After that, the results of the 3 of all of our evaluations would be consolidated into one summary document, which the chair has typically done. That's really just taking an average of the grades and setting up a summary document. The summary results, including the comments, are then typically presented, or actually required to be presented, the summary document presented to Ryan verbally at a posted meeting. So this is a very public process. And once that happens, we can have any discussion that we want to, and then it's signed by everyone, and it's filed in Ryan's personnel file at the end of that process. So that's sounds shorter than it is, but to your point, Gary, and I wrote this down and I'm not sure I kept all the dates, but if we, according to the contract, if we need to have this ready to prepare to present to Ryan in January sometime, which is what it is, it's probably the 18th of January. I'm given a tentative date here that's a meeting that we would be presenting this to Ryan, which means, if you sort of work back from that, I probably need to have the individual ones the week before, 13th or 14th, so that I have, a little time to just put together the final report, which means that, and we'll have to finalize this, but it means that probably, probably we need to be having our meetings with Ryan, our one-on-one meetings with Ryan the week of January 10th. So there's, time to do that, which means that we would hand out the evaluation documents the very first week of January. It doesn't have to be at a meeting once we all agree that this is the document. So we'd pass them out to the 3 of us on the 3rd. We would complete them, meet with Ryan the week of the 10th, the 10th to the, sort of 20th. Is that right?
No,
10th?
No, not,
No, 10th to like the 14th.
yes.
So that I can, at least by Friday, have them back. I don't think it'll take very long to be able to accumulate it and then present to Ryan on the 18th of January. It sounds like a long time, but then it doesn't. So if that seems reasonable to folks, Ryan and I will actually write that up formally and send it to everyone so that we can.
if I may, I think
Yeah.
that's a little, I don't think that's a lot of time. I think it's actually really tight. You know, you never know what comes up on any given week. I'd almost like to get the documents earlier, to decide on the evaluation form earlier, allow us more time to have those meetings with Ryan, and then still plan for January 18th as the presentation, getting the information to you the week before, but giving us more time to connect with Ryan. I guess that's probably, I feel like it might be a busy time.
Yeah, and we don't have to vote on this document. So if we have general consensus that this is the document that we're comfortable with, then it can actually be sent out whenever, as soon as we'd like. I would caution folks, of course, open meeting law and privacy. So, you know, sometimes when you have a document hanging around for a long time, it gets left somewhere. So, but, you know, we can certainly, you know, go back a week or so and just give it to you earlier, so that there's a couple of weeks to fill it out and then a couple of weeks to
meet and talk with Ryan.
To meet and talk with Ryan.
And all of our schedules.
Right. Okay.
I know you, I mean, I don't meet with Ryan too much in person, but this would be something we'd want to probably do in person and trying to find the time.
So maybe we would distribute these documents between the week of the 27th of January of December, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere
Maybe after
the end of December,
after the Hanukkah and Christmas holidays.
whatever, somewhere like that. Yeah.
And due back to you, Catherine, by what, the 12th?
The 12th would be great, especially since we're
Good.
backing this up,
Mhm.
but the 12th would be great.
All right.
And then with a goal of presenting it to Ryan on the 18th. That sound like it'd be better?
Yes, please.
Uh,
Thank you.
Okay.
Plan. Right.
All right. So we'll document that and send it out. Next on our agenda is a discussion of a potential select board policy for the reverse 911. This was an issue you thought brought up, a question that you had last meeting, Diane.
I know I'm such a problem.
I think, well, Ryan has done some background work. Do you want to share that with us, Ryan? And then
Sure.
we have to decide what we want to do.
Right. So just as a quick thing, when we had the conversation among the board members about use of the 911, you know, it can be a very helpful tool, but you know, one person's helpful reminder, you know, might be something else to somebody. So you know, I figured there had to be some policies out there, and what is included in the board packet are reverse 911 policies from Linfield. And you'll probably see some similar patterns here too as we go through this, but Linfield, and then we also had one from Weston, which again looks very similar to the Linfield one. You'll see plenty of copying in the municipal side of things, and then finally Phillipston as well. So really, you know, the reverse 911 system can be used in many ways. I mean, typically when we look at this, say this list from Phillipston, obviously more of a focus on emergencies, public health issues, evacuations, things of that nature. Obviously, those are sort of higher level, obvious pieces, but some of these policies also get into who's an authorized user and what messages can get out there. So I just wanted to share with the board to, you know, sort of give some information, some thoughts about what other communities are doing. You know, generally speaking, you know, from my perspective, I never try to, you know, use it too much, because I think that it can become just too much noise for people at times, but it is there as a tool, and I know that it's a helpful tool to know that you can tie into when necessary. So I would just put it back to the board, with this information, whether or not you had any thoughts about wanting to develop a policy or doing anything else with this. But I just wanted to give you the information to begin that conversation.
Thanks for pulling that together. So thoughts, Gary? Any thoughts on?
Well, I think
what
we
you'd
can
like to
just
do?
merge those 3 documents and copy and paste, right? And then
Right.
certainly I see its use as being, as Philistine has, clear emergencies in some circumstances to get other timely information out. And third is leaving it up to the discretion of the town administrator that if he or she feels they need to use it, then go ahead and use it. Those are the 3 areas I would say.
Diane?
So I
Thoughts?
agree. I'm the one, I brought it up. I strongly believe that it's for emergency purposes. I really think the more you use it, the less people pay attention. And thankfully, the Phillipson one is not anything that we've had, those things. So it wouldn't be used very often, and of course, it's going to be subjective if we leave it to the town administrator or to any board. It's a subjective thing when to use it and when not to use it. But, and I don't know how to make a policy to say that, but I worry that we'll use it for too many reasons. It would be a problem. So I don't know.
Okay. So I have a few thoughts. I actually thought, as relative to the lists, which were surprisingly similar between the 3 towns, is probably a state policy somewhere that everyone's copied from. But if we're going to have a policy, and it sounds like folks think that there should be one, the Phillipson list, I thought was the best of them because it just was a little less specific. So it left a few things up to judgment because, as specific a list as you make, there could be a situation clearly in the category of emergencies here. But it just opened it up a little bit more. I'm not sure that we'd ever use this for sending information to employees, which seems to be in all of them. But I think that list is written in a way that allows a little bit of flexibility. And the only other thing I would say is some of these have a lot of information on a lot of roles, but I think something simplified that clearly delineates who has authority to decide to send one of these using according to the policy, who will actually be recording them. Some of the procedures I think are important, but some of these policies I thought were maybe a little longer or more complicated than we would need. One thing that some of them had, and I'm interested in Ryan's opinion certainly too, is a lot of them had a form. So it seems as if the TA is sort of the primary point of contact for most of this. Sometimes it's the public safety, but several of them had a form. So if you're a person who has a need or desire to put out a reverse 911, you fill out a form, which may even specifically identify what the message will be. I don't think we've ever had anything like that. And I don't know, Ryan, if you think that's something that would be useful or not.
Not particularly. I think that, again, the broader aspect of this is to use it as infrequently as possible.
Right.
So that if there was anything that fell into the list here, say the Phillipson list that we have in front of us, I think it would be pretty certain that it would be a message that either myself, chairman of the select board, or the police or fire chief would be giving in their notice. So,
Right.
The form seems to just add unnecessary layer of bureaucracy to this, because again, in this instance, what's good about it is that it really defines in a crisp way what those emergencies are, and it's clear that if that were to happen, then that would have to be, again, either from myself, chair of the select board, or one of the two chiefs.
Quickly, without a form and
Right.
acceptance.
Right.
I would say it would be pretty fast.
Consistent with the emergency, of the
Right,
emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only notification I guess I would request is that I don't think we have to add to the time or the administration to have a board approval, but I think it would be important for the select board to know. Hopefully we'd know if one of these emergencies were happening, but I think it would be important also for us to just receive notification that, a reverse 911 is going out and for the purpose of it. But I did think the Phillipston, with some modifications, was the simplest and the shortest and the clearest, if we wanted to use that as a template. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
So Ryan, who do you have on your huge staff who can take on this? Do you have resources at the moment, or should we just leave this for your list?
Okay, well, I mean, again, there is a template to work from, so it's not working from scratch, but certainly it seems like I've gotten some good guidance from you to think about using that as a template. Should be some relatively minor tweaks, and yeah, no, that's doable. So that's fine. That's fine. So thank you.
Maybe we'll try to get that back on an agenda sometime in January.
Yep.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
bringing that up, Diane. Let's see. Okay, overview and discussion of the November 3rd Finance and Advisory Committee meeting regarding iron rail rent issues. And I'm going to turn that over to you, Ryan.
Okay. thank you.
Introduce and discuss. Thank you.
Sure. So as some of you already know, both Gary and Catherine had attended this finance and advisory committee meeting. I have to actually get used to the end advisory. So I usually it's just finance committee. So the end advisory, I haven't quite figured out what end advisory is. It's kind of like Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know what's beyond, but I'm guessing if anybody has any thoughts, I'm sure that'll come up. But
You should ask the FinCom sometime. I bet they have some ideas.
I'm sure there are opinions. So I'm sorry. This is where this is where I get to try my material out, I guess, guys. So my apologies on that front. But so in essence, during the course of the pandemic, there were a number of tenants at Iron Rail who began to either stop payment or provide reduced payments. And what I provided to the board is the same document that we provided at the finance committee meeting. And this is basically a calibration or review of what payments have been made to the town for our tenants. And this is well, it's a spelling error, but let's get out of that. But gymnastics, some of the provost group, basically we have in this basically 6 different tenants down at Iron Rail. And one of the primary concerns that were taking place or that the Finance and Advisory Committee had during the COVID pandemic was, how is the town going to be able to recoup this? And so, the first thing that we needed to do was to do a reconciliation of these accounts, and Jamie, our finance director, was able to do that. So if we look all the way here at the end, that when we look at what the balance is, we know that we're talking about, generally speaking, I think this doesn't necessarily show it, but we're right in the vicinity of about $90,000 of rent that's in arrears here. And what we discussed with the FinCom was a plan as to how we were proposing to move forward. So the first thing we were proposing to do, the town has received about $1.6 million in ARPA funds, which allows the town to fill up gaps or fill in financial gaps that were caused by the pandemic. This is a fairly clear case that we can prove that these tenants were impacted negatively due to COVID, and we believe that we should be able to recoup roughly to the tune of the $90,000 in arrears, payment in arrears that we're due. Moving forward, however, what we want to do is, now that we have a stronger tracking mechanism in place in the finance department, to as these rents come in, to know when we're missing anything, and staying on top of that. What we would propose to do is then, as of July 1st, 2021, the beginning of fiscal year 22, which is the current fiscal year we're in, at that point, basically, a lot of the issues with COVID have essentially, the heart of those problems have gone away. And so what we're proposing to do is to bring back the rules of the existing leases, and remind folks of where we are, where they may be in arrears, what they need to do to true up and on their respective leases, and proceed forward. So it's a way to sort of address the issues we had in the past with them, but also as a way to sort of establish a new start point and move forward from there. We had this conversation with the Finance and Advisory Committee. Seemed to be positive feedback. After that meeting and receiving that feedback, I followed up with KP. The question of the ARPA money, they did get back to me on that. They do believe that this is squarely within a capacity for which we can receive money back. But I'm just also waiting to hear back from them in terms of the strategy, if they had any issues or concerns with our plan, again, to begin as of July 1st, enforcing the existing leases that we have in place, and really just getting out and working with the Iron Rail Commission to engage with everybody, inform them of what the plan is, and just to get everybody back in line moving forward. So this is it created a great deal of stress among the tenants and the Finance and Advisory Committee. So we're hoping that this is, as a plan, is sensible. It's also fair to our tenants as well, recognizing some of the issues that they have gone through, but also just trying to again establish a path forward for this. So and the feedback, at least, and Gary and Catherine, please feel free to pipe in, but it seemed as if the feedback we received back from them was positive in terms of the plan moving forward. Still waiting for that last confirmation back from KP Law, but don't anticipate there being too many issues on their end. So anything else, Gary and Catherine, from that meeting, and observations that you had?
I just would reiterate one thing that I know is in process, or I believe is in process, and that is that we do have a little bit of a disconnect, because as we moved forward with all of the sort of, I guess I'll call it chaos of the pandemic, it wasn't necessarily obvious to the tenants that their leases have every year an automatic increase in the rent. And so what we're seeing a little bit is what's being paid in FY22 are really not FY22 amounts. So I think one piece of that just reiterate that Ryan did, that was discussed, was that they, there just needs to be some communication, so that what the rent they seem to be paying on a regular basis is the appropriate rent for the year that they're paying. But that's the only other comment I have. I'd like to thank everyone who's worked on this, and I'm glad for the tenants that there is some governmental relief for, I'm sure, difficult times, but also some moving forward responsibility placed back on the tenants to move on in a regular manner. Diane, comments, questions?
You muted.
I should stop muting myself. There's nobody here. No, that's fine. Thank you. I was not aware of all that stuff, so that's good information.
Gary?
No, I think it's a very fair, sticking with the starting July 21 this year, we're back to pretty much operations normal, and they are paying the rent, and we'll make those little adjustments. But I think everyone has to realize that the previous year, with the full impact of the pandemic, nationwide, worldwide, there are extraordinary circumstances. So the town itself is being made whole by ARPA money. So I think this is a good plan going forward.
Great. Anything else on that, Ryan? Thank you for the report.
Okay.
Okay, then we will move to our next item of business, the notice of fiscal year 2022. Here we are at that already. Tax classification public hearing scheduled for December 1st, 2021. And Ryan, again, I think you.
Sure. Okay, so this item is more like a belt and suspenders item. Let me just find the item here. So typically, when we have a tax classification, the requirement is that we must advertise this in a newspaper. But you can see from what's highlighted here, the classification notice must comply now with just the open meeting law. So this is a change of what we've done. There is no longer a requirement to publish the notice in a newspaper or general circulation. That ended in FY 2021. So what we have instead is a requirement just per the open meeting law to make people aware that this is happening. So we're going to be doing two things. The first is, if it's okay with the chair, I just wanted to read the public notice to make sure that we're giving due notice to the public about this meeting, which is taking place on December 1st. Additionally, that's taking place off cycle. Normally we'd be meeting on Tuesday, November 30th, but we're doing this on a Wednesday because of the election taking place. So, and then after that, as Catherine had noted earlier, our second meeting in December, our plan would be to then provide an update on what was voted on at the classification hearing for people potentially returning back to our normal cycle, as well as to let everybody know what the tax rate has been set at. I would note for the tax classification, this is not setting the tax rates. As I sat down with Steve yesterday, he reminded to poke me that a few times. This is really a question, the classification of the taxes, and whether or not the primary question being is, does the town want to split their tax rate between a commercial rate and a residential rate? So that's really what the purpose of this is. And Catherine, with your permission, I was just going to read the public notice.
Please, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So for the record, public notice for the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, the annual tax classification hearing notice must comply with the open meeting law. The requirement for publication of notice in a newspaper of general circulation has been eliminated for fiscal year 2021. Actually, it's happened in fiscal year 20. It says 2022. It actually happened in 2021, but be that as it may. The purpose of this notice is to inform the public per the open meeting law that the fiscal year 2022 tax classification hearing will take place at the next select board meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. And note that the regularly scheduled biweekly select board meeting date has been pushed back one day to December 1st due to the special state election scheduled for Tuesday, November 30th. So that's it. We know we're going to be talking about it at our next meeting. So that's basically just giving the public notice of that.
And I'll just put not a finer point, but another point, because I've had the same lecture from Steve, our assessor, and others, just to make clear that this particular meeting, the tax classification meeting, is a pretty simple case of just deciding whether or not we would like the tax rate to be different for businesses than it is for residential buildings. It's usually a pretty simple discussion, and our assessor will be there to help, separate, as Ryan said, from the tax rate. Any other comments or questions about this?
Nope.
Save a little money by not putting up, not having to put something in the newspaper. So Gary, Diane, no. Okay, so we've been notified.
Okay.
We'll be there. Okay, so this next old business, our first and only old business, is the Wenham Cemetery Rules and Regulations. We did receive a presentation on this at our last meeting, and before we even start talking about it, I want to thank Bill Wilson and the Cemetery Commission for their collaboration and listening to the board comments I made in particular, taking them seriously, incorporating them in ways that they could. So thanks in advance for recommending some changes. Bill, I think you're here. I know you're here, and I think you're
I'm here,
prepared to say a few words on this.
Yeah, we'll keep it brief. You know, I think we did a good job last time when we did the update for you folks, but I just want to bring up to date what the Delta changes were. So if you go to the next chart. So we met on 3 November as a group and talked about a couple different things. And I came away with 2 actions from that review. Section 4, sale of lots point system doesn't appear equitable. Catherine, you had pointed that out, and it really needed a little cleaning up and clarification because the town employee looked like they get some benefit, and where they really went in residence, it wasn't quite clear. So we took that as an action to clean that up. And then Section 5, interment and disinterment. The Cemetery Commission has authority to change the fees, but pending select board approval, and that language was omitted, and we put that in. Next chart. So what we did in Section 4 from the sale of lots, I have the from and the to. And so it went from sale of cemetery plots shall be restricted to Wenham residents, and the yellow portion is what has been deleted, or long-term minimum 15-year town employees, which kind of confused the issue, or former residents of Wenham 25-year duration. We cleaned that up. Catherine, thank you for your input for this, and went to the sale of cemetery plots shall be restricted to current Wenham residents or former residents of Wenham for 25 years. Next is the point system. I can't really read this here. The clarity isn't very good, but it went from to. Let me clean that up a little bit. It's a little better there, yeah. So on the left is what we started with, and on the right are the changes. So on number 4 there, can you tighten it up just a little bit more?
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, and then move it to the left. So number 4, we went from town employees with greater than 10 years to resident town employees with greater than 15 years service. So if you're a resident of Wenham and you're a town employee, you get the benefit of 1 point. So that clean that up, tighten the language up a little bit, and move the chart up a little bit.
Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. And then this one here, I already talked about that the fees for services shall be set by the Wenham Cemetery Commission subject to change. We've added, we're going to do that, but must be approved by the select board. So that has been changed also. Next chart. Okay, that's one down one.
So I went the wrong way. There.
Okay, so in summary, we've incorporated the recommended changes. They're all in right now. With the package I sent out, I have a file titled Wenham Cemetery Rules and Regulations, 16 November 2021, which is what you folks would be voting on today. So we'll wait the select board's final questions if you have any, deliberations, and vote of approval if appropriate.
Are there any further questions on the rules and regs for the cemetery? Gary?
Looks good.
Okay, Diane?
No, looks great.
And again, thank you very much. You definitely at least heard my concerns, and I think it looks, I think it's a little clearer now. And again, appreciate the work to bring it up. I'm perfectly
thanks to the commission.
with it.
Harriet, I think, is on board tonight. They're playing a role in this along with Olivia Shovlin. So thanks to the committee.
Great.
I know there's a lot of work involved to update that. Are we ready for a motion?
We are.
All right. Move to approve proposed changes to the Town of Wenham Cemetery Department rules and regulations as presented by Cemetery Commission Chairperson William Wilson at the November 16th, 2021 meeting of the Wenham Select Board.
Second.
Last minute comments or questions? Not moving to a vote. Diane?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. So it's unanimous to approve these as presented and written on the 16th of November. Again, thank you to the Cemetery Commission. Updating these things is never easy, but it's good. I think it's really good.
Thank you. And we'll take action to, after the minutes come out, to post that up to the website, the cemetery side.
Yeah, that'd be great. People probably need to know.
Okay.
Well done, Bill.
Thank you, sir.
Very well.
Thank you.
Okay, so that moves us really to the other matters as may not have been anticipated by the chair. I have none. Gary or Diane, do you have any other matters that you'd like to bring up tonight?
I do not.
Okay, Gary? Oh, yeah.
If I could just, as we roll into Saturday's meeting on the 20th for the financial matters, I hope going in that we consider staying on a high level and take a look at what inflation may be doing to us in the next year or so, what our priorities on expenditures of the federal funds, how we're going to hopefully work on the structural deficit. And I think most importantly, that we can't keep kicking things down the road, that we ought to make sure that we have a full budget this year that shows exactly how much the cost of government is, and not just sort of say we'll push that off to the following years. But we'll get into that Saturday.
It's going to be a good meeting. I think it's an opportunity for us to hear, for the FinCom and the Select Board together, to hear each of our questions and comments, each boards, as well as to hear, of course, from the staff and the department heads in particular. So that is 8:30 this Saturday morning. We have listed here again our December 1st Select Board meeting. And then, as we discussed earlier, a December 8th. As soon as we're sure the other groups can make it, put on your calendar December 8th for the tri-board meeting with the schools, and another Select Board meeting on the 14th of December. And that will, and a meeting on the 18th of December. That I think then will take us through the month of December and into the new year. Anything else? Just in case anyone's interested, I'm 2 minutes away from my little number that I wrote down, a little bet that I made with myself. Yeah, you have to make it just a little fun. Anyway, if there is nothing else, I will take that motion.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Diane, vote.
Sure. Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Catherine? Yes. Thanks, everyone, very much. Great meeting. And we'll see you all bright and early, well, on Zoom, bright and early Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.